it's time that we do a C-section. And you haven't failed, and I know that this is really hard, but at this point you've developed a fever, and that is an indicator that there's an infection and that there's something wrong. And with you having a fever, with how high your blood pressure is, with how high your heart rate is, that is a real concern for the baby. And of course, then at that point, yeah, I'm gonna do what's best for the baby. Like, now I've developed a fever. Like, really? I have a fever. Okay. You know, I had been there for like 20 hours at this point, and she was not coming out. My body had tried pushing and she wasn't coming yet. But then when they said I developed a fever, I got scared, and I was like, okay. And I started to cry, and I was really upset, and I was really scared. Having the Pitocin, having the epidural is one thing. Having a C-section was like the last thing that I wanted. And I had all these visions of how I was going to have my baby, and she's going to come on my chest, and I was going to hold her, and I was going to bond with her, and I was going to nurse her. And, you know, I asked about that, and they're like, well, you know, we will have to put you in recovery, but we'll give you your baby right after that. They get me ready, they take me down, and this happens pretty quick. I mean, you know, at this point, once they said I had a fever, like, they moved pretty quick and seemed pretty worried. They got my husband prepped, but he wasn't in the room when, like, they moved me onto the table, so I was getting kind of scared. I'm on this table, and I'm looking around, and the anesthesiologist comes in, and he gives me, like, a big dose of an epidural so that, like, I'm completely numb, where I just don't feel anything, and that makes me sick, where I start to throw up. And thank goodness he had some magical something, and he put it in, and it took the nausea away within like 30 seconds. And I was like, oh my God, I love you. Like, I don't know who you are. I can't even see your face, but I love you. So they put up this screen, or like this blanket or whatever, so I can't see past my belly. I can't see the doctors. I can't see anything. They come in, and I just remember being really thirsty. And this is where I feel, and this will, like, I think will start to play into like the postpartum depression when I do that video, but this is where I feel like I started to disconnect a little bit. But I felt really thirsty, and that was all I could think about. Like, I literally felt like those people that have those visions in the desert where all they want is water. So they start the procedure. My husband's standing there, and he tells me, he's like, all right. He's like, you're open. And he's like, oh my gosh, you know, and he's like kind of doing a play-by-play. I called stops when he said, he's like, oh man. So there was two doctors, and this is going to get graphic, so if you don't want to hear the graphicness for a few seconds. I guess one on each side stuck their hands into my abdomen, and then they just both leaned to the side. So they pulled my abs apart. When he said that, I was like, you need to shut up. Like, are you serious? And he like took a picture. So we have a picture of my uterus and my ovaries sitting on top of my belly. Like, we have a picture of this. It's crazy. And then like when they're done with you, like they put it back into place, and it's just so weird. It is so weird. So you can't, like, obviously I don't feel pain, but you feel them inside of you. So like you feel this tugging. That is weird. Like, it's just weird to feel people inside of you. And so this takes a while, and they pull, so they, like, she comes out, and, you know, my husband like disappears, and they're supposed to bring her over to me so I can see her, but they don't bring her over to me. And it gets like, it's a little like thing that I'm just kind of like loopy as heck, like with all the medicine I'm on. And at one point they said, we need to take her to the NICU. Do you want to see her before she goes? And I said, yeah. And they rolled her by me. Like, I didn't see her, like they didn't bring her to me to kiss her or touch her. They rolled her by. So I looked over, and I remember just going, oh, she looks weird. Because like her head from like from me trying to push her out, like had actually like forced a cone look, and they took her. And Ricky said she wasn't breathing, but she's breathing now. But it was very like nonchalant. And I was like, okay. And I was like, can I have water now? And they're like, no, we need to like sew you back up and get you in recovery. And I'm like, I need water. And they're like, you have to wait. So I remember just like counting down the minutes, and I was like, this is taking forever. They got me into recovery. And as the medication was wearing off, like I started shaking really bad, and like my jaw was so tense, like it hurt so bad. But I remember being like, well, when can I see my baby? And I was like, so what happened? Like, and I'm like kind of like in and out, and I'm just like doing this, and I'd be like, okay, what's going on? Where is she? After being in the recovery for about an hour, they like took my bed and they wheeled me into the NICU, and I got to see her, but I couldn't hold her. So she was in like an incubator, and so I stuck my hand in and I got to touch her. And I barely even remember this. Like I remember seeing her, and she was hooked up to things, and she was just so teeny, but in comparison to the other babies in NICU, she was huge. I mean, she was 8 pounds, 10 ounces. She was a big baby. And, you know, but still relatively small in comparison to my hand. But to these other poor babies, it was just heartbreaking. But I barely even remember it. I just remember touching her, and they were like, okay, we have to go. And I was just like, why? Like, I don't understand, like, why she's in here. But I'm still so, like, drugged up that, you know, I don't know how to ask these questions. So they get me to the room, and I remember telling my husband, I'm like, go be with her. Like, you need to go be with her. I don't want her to be alone. So he goes to see her, and they told me that I needed to be able to get up and walk before I could go to the NICU to see her. And I'm like, seriously? So she was born at 1:22 p.m. on September 24th. Yes, she was on September 24th, you guys. Like so anyways, at 1:22, at midnight, something, so almost 12 hours later, they come in the room and they try to have me get up and like go to the bathroom. It takes me 10 minutes to get out of bed. I mean, it hurts. It hurts so bad in my ab area. I get out of bed. Once I finally stand up, blood just pours out of me. And I was just like, and they're like, that's normal. And I'm like, okay. But I tried to take a step, and it's like, I had no muscles. Like I took a step and like just kind of like started to crumble a little bit, you know, and they had my arms, so they lifted me up and they're like, yeah, get back in bed. And I'm like, but what about my baby? And they're like, we'll try again tomorrow. And I'm just like, are you serious? So I didn't see her until the next day, until like I could get up and walk. And it was so painful to walk. Like, oh, it was so painful. That whole stay was a blur. Like, they had me on all these pain meds, and I would like fall asleep in mid-conversation, and like friends that came to visit will like tell funny stories of things that I was talking about, because I'd be in the middle of a conversation. I'd be like, yeah, and then there was a hot dog man. And then he went over and he talked to the hamburger, like just weird things. And so I would pump, try to eat whatever food they gave me, walk to the NICU, try to nurse her. She'd refuse because they were giving her formula because she was in the NICU. So I'd feed her the formula, try to hold her, go back to the room, pump, try to eat, go back to the NICU, try to feed her. And it was so discouraging because like I wasn't getting any milk. And so I finally found out that when she was born, she wasn't breathing. So she was just like limp, and they have an APGAR test where they want you to score a certain number, and she scored very low. Obviously, if you're not breathing, you're gonna score low. And they said there was meconium like in the womb, and meconium is their first poop, and they said that if a baby poops while they're still inside the womb, that's a sign of distress. And since I had a fever and that's a sign of infection, they were worried that something was wrong with her. And so they had to do testing on if she had an infection, which took 3 days to get the results back. So she was in the NICU that whole time. And I still wasn't getting my milk. My OB said that by day 4 I'd have my milk. Day 4 came, I didn't have my milk. So the last night that I was in the hospital is the night that they gave her to us. And the next day we were sent home. And I'm like, I still can't nurse. I'm not allowed to pick her up in her car seat. And like, I can't even get milk from the pump. Like, I'm pumping with their hospital grade pump and like milk's not coming out. And it was just really rough. And I will talk to you about the postpartum depression in a separate video, because from there on, this is where it gets hard and things get harder. But it was really stressful. And it was really hard. And even now, like when I think about it, it's hard to even like verbalize, but I realized that, you know, you can't just have like your dream birth experience, because any number of things can happen. So I knew not to go into the hospital with like this set criteria, but I could not have fathomed that all of this would happen. That like, not only would I not have like a more natural birth, but that I would end up having a C-section. My baby would not be breathing. She would be in the NICU, and I wouldn't be able, like, that it would just be as hard as it was. And it was so hard. And I felt like I could feel it even then, that something was off. And it's really hard not to like look back and see like if there was a way to have prevented all that, if I could have been more educated or made better choices. And maybe it would have happened no matter what. Like I said, I'm not against C-sections to save a mother and a child, but a part of me wonders, like, what if I really wasn't in labor? Like, what if I wasn't ready yet and like they forced it by giving me the Pitocin, you know, because that's what makes the hospital and the doctors money. Because I didn't feel like I was in labor. Like, yeah, I was in pain, but I wasn't feeling these contractions. And we can't go back and fix these things. And I have a beautiful, healthy daughter now, and that is what I am grateful for. But it is a situation that I mourn. Like, I mourn not having that, and then I mourn the months that followed that were really, really hard. So that was my birth experience, and I don't want to scare women, because I know plenty of women who have beautiful births and they don't have the issues that I had. The most important thing is that educate yourself. I feel like growing up, I was told that like, you get pregnant, you go to the hospital, you get on those medications and you have your baby. And I don't believe that that's the way it is. I believe that God gave us these bodies to have babies, and our bodies will do the job. Sometimes there are complications, and I am so grateful that we have medical technology to help us during those times. But most of the time, a lot of these interferences cause problems that are not necessary. And I just really, really, really encourage you to do your research and to look into it, and just know that you do have the power to have a baby, and it's not as scary as it seems. I mean, it is scary, it's unknown, And I mean, I'm scared because now I have no idea what a normal birth situation looks like. I have no clue, but I have and I will be doing even more research on how to have a vaginal birth after a cesarean, and it is my hope that I will be able to have a natural birth next time I have a child, if I'm able to. So that is my story. I know this was a very, very long video. It may be rambly, but this is what I have for you guys, and I hope that you can take something from it, I guess. And I don't know, of course, Put Under Pressure will be my very next Mommy Monday video, but I will be making that soon. And I love you guys, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.